Joining us now to review some headlines in today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Mr. Efeni.
Good morning, Leila. Good morning, Robin. Let's start straight away with these day newspapers. The lead story: police embarked on strict enforcement of curfew, interstate travel ban. Bow to pressure, amend no exemption directive against journalists, health workers. Federal government holds self-medication responsible for most COVID-19 deaths. Trains 12,000 health workers on infectious disease control. 226 new cases push total to 6,175 with 1,734 discharged, 192 dead. Buhari celebrates irreplaceable Nigerian professor who recovered in UK. Yes, this lead story, and of course, if we look at some other newspapers with similar headlines, the Sun newspaper, Daily Sun, security agencies get tougher on interstate travel ban to arrest violators. 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. While the Daily Independent, the lead story, why there is rise in the COVID-19 death, federal government. But if we come back to these day newspapers, this strict enforcement of the curfew by the police, of course, arising from the pronouncement of the Inspector General of Police that there will be no exemption. And we've seen journalists and health workers being held at a checkpoint, some spending a night there as a result. But the police seem to have come out again to clarify what the IG said. And in essence, bringing back the exemption which President Buhari granted health workers, journalists, as well as telecommunications workers. So what is playing out here, is it a case of the Inspector General of Police not communicating properly, or just defying the president? But again, since the police spokesman has come out to explain that indeed there is no disregard for that exemption. Well, in the past, we've had an Inspector General of Police who struggled with reading a script. So if we need to clarify a statement made by if there is the need to clarify the statement made by the Inspector General of Police by his spokesman, well,
he rescinded on the statements. Essentially, his spokesman just came and rescinded on the statement that he came out with because it was bizarre. I mean, there's already an order that's out there and you want to go against a presidential directive. It just didn't make sense. And quite frankly, as long as they have resconded on that statement, I think
thought the spokesman was clarifying the IG statement.
No, in any case, whatever it is. I mean, one, we were told there was a teleconference between the Inspector General of Police and zonal Assistant Inspector Generals and Commissioners of Police, where they were told to ensure strict enforcement and that there will be no exemption. Secondly, that this was followed up with a police signal. That the basis of it is that the police had been accused of not enforcing the curfew that was declared by the president. But whatever it is, the Inspector General of Police and his team must be reminded again. I had commented on this earlier, but must be reminded that Nigeria is not in a police state. And a police signal or the emotional feelings, the whim and caprices of the Inspector General of Police and his team cannot override the directive of the President of Nigeria. The Inspector General himself is an appointee of the President, and he exercises delegated authority as stipulated in the Constitution. Now, what we know is that certain categories of service providers have been classified as essential workers. Is the Inspector General of Police, will he say, for example, that there is a fire accident after 8 p.m. in any part of the country? The fire servicemen cannot go there. If somebody has to be treated by a doctor and a doctor is on call after 8 p.m., he cannot go. If a journalist has to read news at 10 p.m.
or go and report something happening on the street
because there is curfew, then that journalist cannot go out. And that's why I say that, look, common sense. People should do their work with common sense and discretion. So now it has become an issue. Every paper has reported it. And it is good that yesterday, after journalists and health workers were detained in many police stations across the country for more than 2 hours, that situation was reversed. That is the situation that should subsist. And the Office of the Inspector General of Police should send out another signal informing every policeman in every part of the country that there are people who are essential workers. All they need to do is to identify themselves. As for enforcing the lockdown on interstate travel, I think that's important.
Yes.
You know, the police have been accused of negligence in that regard.
Yes.
That's what they should take more seriously to help in preventing community transmission. And every effort should also be made that when the police troop out, as they tend to do, a few minutes before 8 p.m., they do not turn this curfew into an opportunity for extortion and harassment, because that's what people have reported.
Yes, because you're talking about interstate enforcement. And when they enforce...
I know if they enforce that seriously...
When they enforce that seriously, it means a journalist coming from Ogun State into Lagos.
Yes.
Will not move.
Don't worry. You will do newspaper review by a Zoom.
Well, maybe that's what the IG meant by strict enforcement. Now you are looking for exemption. You journalists, you are looking for exemption on interstate movement.
No, Efeni, you are covered. You are an essential worker. I'm sure nobody can stop you.
But there are doctors who also live in Ogun State and work in Lagos State.
Many people that live in Ogun and work in Lagos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's move on.
That should be the situation.
Yes, the Nation newspaper, NAFDAC begins testing of 4 virus remedy drugs. No use spending money on Madagascar cure drug. Chinese claim new drug can stop pandemic without vaccine. Minister, self-treatment cause of many COVID-19 deaths. Yes, if we take it from that last bit, which the minister had to explain yesterday, that a number of these deaths are as a result of persons who were self-medicating at home, perhaps based on what they have heard from some presidents and some persons who came out of the isolation centers haven't been treated. Some people try to treat themselves at home, and the situation gets worse. And by the time they arrive at the isolation centers, their cases are usually very bad, and hence we're seeing some spike in number of deaths. But the fact that NAFDAC had commenced the testing of 4 drugs, likely remedy, I think that should gladden the hearts of many people in Nigeria, that all the claims we've had from various quarters, at least they should be given some scientific process, the process of testing, seeing their efficacy, their safety, and their level of toxicity. So perhaps nobody will complain that NAFDAC or the authorities are not doing the needful, despite the fact that there are claims of cure in Nigeria.
Well, first of all, I think it's good news to hear that NAFDAC has started taking a look at a number of 4 remedy drugs, because the last time we had Professor Adeyeye here, she said they had not started yet, and that they just had one, which was just an application, and so clinical trial had not yet started. And I guess that, look, perhaps if there is an early discovery of a vaccine, that would be a big relief to the entire world, and that could also correct many of the distortions or disruptions that have been occasioned by COVID-19. The Chinese, were told, may have come up with a drug. In the United States, there was the testing of another drug, although there are doubts about, whether that can work or not. And then in the United Kingdom, there is hope that perhaps by September, a drug will come up. Talking about drugs, I think it's also good news that the Nigerian government has helped to clear the air about whether or not Nigeria got an invoice from Madagascar over the COVID organics sent to Nigeria. So the Nigerian government has made it clear again that, look, it was a donation.
That clarification has been made over and over.
But the story keeps coming up.
People don't seem to believe government.
Well,
and it's just 5 cartons. That's what I don't understand.
Few cartons that we had to pick from Equatorial Guinea. Perhaps we shouldn't have gone there to pick it.
No, we didn't know from Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea-Bissau.
We didn't even go there.
It was brought over here.
President Mbalo brought the consignment.
So it's a mere donation. A mere donation.
Well, I guess the point is, look, once people don't trust you, you have to keep repeating the same thing over and over again. Now, we're told that the Chinese medical experts, that they are still in the country.
Yes.
I think government wasted a little time before offering that clarification. And why is it that the Minister of Health, I think it was the Minister of Health that first said he didn't know the whereabouts of the Chinese doctors. And it will have to take the Minister of Interior to come and clarify the situation. So we need better communication, better synergy,
Minister of Interior, because he knows the whereabouts of foreigners, he grants permission to
these
foreigners
are also doctors.
to stay in Nigeria.
Public health emergency.
But we have been told that they are guests of the CCEC, not government.
No, but if you look at the report given by the Minister of Interior, they've been involved in helping to set up isolation and treatment facilities.
Through CCEC?
Including the This Day Dome.
Through CCEC?
Yeah, but that's a public-private partnership. It still involves government.
Government agencies were also involved.
Yeah.
CCEC is a company.
Yes.
It's not government.
Yeah, it's a company coming in to partner with government.
We'd like to see better communication, better coordination.
Let's just move straight to the foreign newspapers. The Times of London. Doubt cast over date for school reopening. Of course, there's been this hue and cry by teachers' union that the reopening of school on June 1 should not be until they're able to put in place a proper track, trace, and isolate system, which they don't have in place right now. And the teachers seem to be the ones. It's quite worrisome, despite the fact that there are also reports that in other European countries like Denmark, France, where schools have opened, you don't have much cases of infection.
Thanks,
very
Mr.
minimal.
Efeni. Going to have to cut you short.
We'll see how it goes, because the medical association in the UK is saying there's nothing to fear.